Conor, thanks for joining me, man. We're talking about the Voice to Parliament today. You've been pretty vocal. Explain to me what it is. What's it about? Why has it come up in the past, however long it's come up in?
So first of all, I'm just going to give acknowledgement of country. So we're just on the lands of Larrakia people today, and they're not my people, so I can't speak on behalf of them with anything I say. I can't speak on behalf of anybody else. This is my experience, and my family and how we've grown up and how we get it all. So that's just laid out there for anyone. If anyone comes along and is going, oh, this fella is talking on behalf of people that he shouldn't be, disclaimer done. Yep. But the Voice to Parliament is pretty much just an idea that was brought to the mind of a great man who lived in a community called Guninyara, and he's passed now, the old man Yunupingu, and he's a very significant part of my family's journey, and he had a very, very, hard life out in Guninyara, and those communities, they were very rushed and very, very rough, and very, third world conditions out there. And so he got a chance to go down south and, go to one of the colleges down there. I think it was in Brisbane. I can't remember which college, but he got to learn how it all operates, how people down south operate, how the law operates, and he got to think for his life and reflect on what is this law that has come into our country and how can our law fit in with that law, because he knew, and we all know, the fact of the matter is that you are all here and we are all here also. We've remained, but you've come, and that's where we live in now. That's what we are. So throughout his life, Yunupingu, he went and he fought for land rights. He failed fighting for land rights. He did the Yirrkala bark petitions. He did the Barunga bark petitions, where all of them called for peacemaking between the federal government and Aboriginal people. So the Barunga statement in particular called to be welcomed into the Constitution. I think that was maybe 1987 or something like that. It's on the page there on the timeline. But yeah, so that happened, and then the Yirrkala bark petition was more to get his land back. And so throughout his life, he's been figuring out how to work this legal system that we're in.
Yep.
And pretty much the culmination of it came from, if as Aboriginal people, we want to be in any control of our own lives, we need to be recognised by the Constitution. We need to be welcomed into it. Our history needs to be recognised first and foremost, but we also need a body or a structural support that can actually affect our lawmaking process. Because as 3% of the population, 4% of the population, we're a drop in the ocean when it comes to democracy of the country. So they've formulated this idea, pitched it, and the Parliament has sent out a delegate group to have a talk ago. Now this was way back in 2013, I think. So the Voice to Parliament is that structure.
Okay.
So the Voice to Parliament is the body that advises the Parliament on the rules and regulations, how Aboriginal people live. Whenever the Parliament goes to make legislation, which is laws, they will have to say, as long as it's about Aboriginal people, so only about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people, they will have to have a say in it. It's purely a recommendation body, so they can only give recommendations. They're not final, because that undoes the whole concept of democracy.
So going back onto this man, when did he make this statement that there needs to be some sort of constitutional recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples?
It's hard to say. So the Barunga statement was probably the first time that, I wouldn't say he was ever said it, but probably the first time that he was involved in vocalising it on a national scale.
Yeah.
So it's on there. It's 1988. I was one day off. This man right here, I'm unable to say his name.
Yeah. What does it say, Carla?
So a second bark petition is presented to the Prime Minister Bob Hawke in 1988 by Yunguman.
Yunupingu. Yep.
The Barunga Statement calls for recognition of Aboriginal rights and for a national elected Aboriginal and Islander organisation to oversee Aboriginal and Islander affairs and for the Commonwealth to negotiate a treaty. Prime Minister Bob Hawke commits to a treaty by 1990.
Okay.
So he calls for this stuff and it pretty much gets pulled out. The rug gets pulled from underneath him. If you know the song Treaty by Yothu Yindi, this is about the whole process.
Sure.
So it started off as this idea for, a recognition of Parliament, which is even before Neville Bonner, an old man from down south, did similar stuff to this, calling for to be added to the Constitution. And a funny thing about that whole ordeal is we were recognised in the Constitution, but we were recognised terribly. We were kind of recognised as being outlawed. So this isn't new to get Aboriginal recognition in the Constitution. This is just the first iteration that is a positive structure for us.
Yeah.
So we were recognised, and the recognition we got was that we weren't able to vote. So it was outlawing us from pretty much society.
Wasn't it also that they were pretty much didn't recognise Aboriginal people as human?
Yeah. So there's some misconceptions about that, but pretty much essentially yes. The only misconceptions are certain legislation that people think it's a Flora and Fauna Act of 1967, but it's not, which is crazy. That's only 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Not even. It's wild. But I like to think of it kind of as, we got the right to vote. So when the first referendum came around, we got the right to vote. So bang, that's counted us as we're technically people. So that's us. We're under law, we're recognised as people. And then we got rid of terra nullius, which means, all right, they're not really saying that we have claim to the land or we have anything. They're just getting rid of the fact that no one's there. And that kind of recognises that we have cultural right, because you're recognising that it wasn't no man's land or terra nullius. And so then now we've gotten to the stage where, what's the next step from here? We've recognised we're people, we recognise we've got land. Do we recognise that we have a continuous relationship with this land, and do we recognise our history and set up a body that will help us to aid in fixing our communities?
So when did this become introduced as a proposal to the Constitution? Was it in 2013, like you previously alluded to, or was it?
So 2013 was the start of the kind of design process of it. So
Okay.
it was in 2016, they were given a year to have a certain allotted amount of meetings across Australia with traditional owners and Aboriginal organisations and stuff like that to create the concept that was the Uluru Statement from the Heart. So at the heart of the voice in this referendum is this document called the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And 2016, like I just said, they went around Australia. They wanted 30 meetings, the organisers, but the federal government, the Liberals, who are, opposed to it at the moment, only funded them for 13. So they wanted 30, they got 13. So less than half of what they wanted to be able to, properly talk to everyone. And so they went around, they did the 13 meetings, and then the culmination was at Mortijulu, which is the community near Uluru, and they wrote up this beautiful document and and all signed it, and then the ladies painted around it, and it's amazing. I don't know if you get a photo up over there, but I can't read it word for word, but it is a representation of, of previous mistrusts and previous wrongdoings, and it's almost like an olive branch to say, we're ready, we want to fix our communities, but we need you to include us so that we can fix them for ourselves.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And why do you think that this has become... Well, actually, before that, the Uluru Statement from the Heart...
Oh, yeah. Should I finish that off?
Yeah,
Sorry.
if you could.
Uluru Statement from the Heart, 2016, they had a year to do it. They did the 13 meetings. They, got everyone there, had meetings. Now there's some past members that were there and past members who couldn't make it. Some people couldn't get there. We couldn't afford to get people. The feds couldn't afford to get people because of time restrictions, remote areas, costs and everything. And so it gets through 2017, they release it, and they release it to Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. They say it was an olive branch, and goes out and he goes, nah, not doing that, sorry. So they go, all right, well, we can't get a federal body. You're not going to give us a federal body. So what's the next step? Referendum. We'll put a vote to the people and see if the values of Australia have shifted to the point where Aboriginal people are seemingly included, which I believe that majority of Australians do believe that. I think that we're in a society at the moment that understands and respects Aboriginal Australians, but hasn't gotten to the stage where they're ready to, give up a bit of that power from their own structure to let us fix our own communities ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it giving up power to give power to Indigenous peoples, or is it giving up power to aid Indigenous peoples? What do you mean by power?
So currently all legislation regarding Aboriginal people, or regarding seeing as a democracy works by the majority. So if you look at that and you look in Parliament, even though we've got 4 members of Indigenous heritage in Parliament, they still can't represent only Aboriginal, thoughts or Aboriginal people. They're representing their electorate. That's how democracy works. So they in order to get a law passed about Aboriginal people or Aboriginal communities, as you know, a lot of the Aboriginal communities in the NT are government-owned, government-controlled. So housing, amenities, infrastructure. You want to get a house put up, you've got to go through the whole NT government housing board, which is people that just, clipping the ticket pretty much. So it's really hard to get stuff done in Aboriginal communities. But what the Voice will do is it will be able to streamline advice. And usually the advice that's happening now is coming straight from Parliament. It's coming straight from the Canberra, electorate mob that are going, yeah, look, all right, I reckon we build a 3-bedroom house with a concrete slab and a big concrete roof, and we'll make it really insulated. When in reality, that's too heavy out there. It'll heat up in the wet season and it gets hot, and then it just falls apart. So the things we're seeing from government already are not quite translating into, hope that doesn't come up on camera, it aren't quite translating into real actions or real tangible things in the community. So that's all coming from Canberra. The NT, by the way, I'm going to put this out there, the NT, how it works, because we're a territory, not a state, we don't have state funding, we have federal funding. So the feds could say, hey, Addy, you're the NT Chief Minister, here's 10 million, take that, use that for Aboriginal housing, that's for you. Then that's job done. You've got it, you get to choose how you spend it. So you've got full autonomy to go and use it however you want. You don't really have to put it to Aboriginal community housing. You should, because that's your job. But we're seeing a lot, like there's a stat out there where, I don't know if you can look this up, but apparently we're only seeing 20% of Indigenous funds actually hit the ground in communities. So whether that's getting spent, it's in the Productivity Commission released a report about that. They reckon about 20% is hitting the ground. So we talk about that being a problem, and and how we can give Aboriginal people more power to fix that. First of all, would be giving them a say in what gets sent up. Not giving them the final go, but giving them the say and give them the specialised advice. They're from the community. They know how to do it. They know what they need in their community. So send it up. And then from there, they can recommend avenues to go to. I use a good example of education, bodies. So you see a lot of really small education bodies. My good friend, Michael Yunapungu from Nhulunbuy, used to run a after-hours centre for the kids out at Guningyara. And so that was, had resounding effect for the kids. They were engaging. They were not getting into trouble after school because they're all getting food. They're all going home, having a sleep, getting up, going to school. And it was just him having to do it all. Pick everyone up, go and cook and, you know, clothe kids or get them to study and get them to do their work. Him and maybe his brother, I think, were doing it. And they could not get any funding. They struggled to get more funding. And for a person in that community to see that happen and to see that have to come undone because, one, he got absolutely drained. It's a very hard job. He just got burnt out. And two, because you can't get the money that's supposed to be there. Like, we all know that a lot of money is being spent on helping, like, close the gap, but we are getting further and further apart in many, many areas.
So I've got two questions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say it's coming from the top down, like, I think that's quite clear that advice is coming and implementations are coming from Canberra.
Mm-hmm.
But surely there is some sort of high level of communication that's going on between Canberra and Indigenous communities. Like, there's 11 parliamentarians. They all represent different parties. Some are the same, some are different. It's quite spread out. Surely, you know, with Indigenous heritage, committed to Indigenous justice, you would say, that they are going to the communities and then they're actually not corrupt in the sense that they're bringing recommendations to their party saying, hey, this is what I see. You don't have to adopt this, but I feel quite passionately about this. So does my neighbour in the Labor Party. So does my neighbour in the Liberal Party. Can we do something? Fair enough, the government rejects it. But is that not some sort of tangible way of communication between community and Parliament?
So that is a very tangible way to communicate. That's a great way to communicate. But unfortunately, the fact of the matter is it doesn't happen like that. You know, you could go into Parliament and, you know, fill the room with water, and, you know, you wouldn't pick a person who'd been to an Aboriginal community that didn't float. You know, like, they're just, no one there is. Everyone there is so detached from the reality of Aboriginal communities. So even the ideas that they bring, they don't translate. Every Aboriginal community is different too. This is why the voice is important, because it's representation for, you know, the over 200 different nations we have in Australia. But the way that you explained it is pretty much what the voice will do, I believe.
Okay.
So the voice will act as a body, a group, similar to what the Governor-General does. If anyone doesn't know what the Governor-General does, the Parliament, bipartisan system, upper house, lower house, Governor-General sits on the side. He represents the Crown and the monarch. So our interests from overseas, the Commonwealth. So that's him. He sits there. He'll give advice to Parliament on laws and legislations. Like, they gave advice on the plebiscite, the gay marriage plebiscite that eventually failed. So he sits on the outside. He doesn't really have that much vetoing power or that much, you know, thing. He's similarly a recommendation body. Similarly, not exactly just a recommendation body though. So the voice will act like the Governor-General, but its representation will be Aboriginal people, which means, say they're saying at the moment 5 people from each state, which is, I think, 35 people in the group, consisting of youth, elders, leaders of the community, so people who are, you know, boots on the ground, and people who are politically minded, sort of thing. And so these people will work there. Say there's a fire for Darwin, and then a legislation gets made about Barunga. And they go, Barunga, it's going to be, you know, shut down at 9 o'clock every night. And they go, oh, wait up. We've got people that need to get to work at 10 o'clock and do night shifts, so they need to be in and out. All right, let's take this legislation. Let's move it down to Barunga. Let's explain it to the people who live at Barunga. Let's get advice on the legislation, what they think. So they get their advice off Barunga, off the Land Council, or whoever is there. They'll give specific advice about the legislation, recommendations. They'll go back, couple that with researched and, you know, academic literature, and send back recommendations. So it might be, you know, no for that. We won't shut the camp down because it's proven here that everyone there needs to be out and about because they have night shift and et cetera, et cetera. The government can then choose what they want to do on that, because if we had the last say, that underpins democracy, which is a strange concept to think about in that situation, that, you know, us having a say and saying, no, we can't do that. underpins the actual democratic process of Australia. Anyway, so then they make the choice. But the best thing about that, I believe, is you're familiar with like political suicide at all. Like it's a pretty, like, you know, taking advice from a recommendation body that is right out there and put in front of your lap. I say, here, 100 people, Addy, need to, you know, get to work, get to night shift. Do what you will with that. This is public for everyone to see, whereas previously it's behind closed doors. So you go, oh, nah, no way, chuck that away, done. And then what happens come election time when they realise, oh, Barunga actually, you know, no one could get to work, no one could do anything past 9 o'clock. Where the hell, who signed off on this? Him, and him. Well, they're obviously not working in the right way for the country, you know, the right mind. So as much as it doesn't have a lot of power, like in terms of making decisions, it does have a lot of power in upholding the integrity of our parliamentary members, you know? Yeah.
What's stopping, you mentioned the man who was helping out the communities. I'm sure there's lots of people doing that with the children that are doing that their own way. I met a lady the other day who was a teacher at an Indigenous community, and she actually was the one who was buying shoes for these kids as a reward system for them to consistently attend school.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Which is crazy.
Crazy. She could definitely then go to Parliament and say, hey, I'm doing this by myself. I need a hand here. What is then... So and then Parliament could ignore that recommendation.
Which they do.
Yep.
Constantly.
What's the difference between that then and her going to the Voice and then the Voice going to Parliament and then them ignoring it anyways? Isn't it just another layer of bureaucracy?
Because it's a constitutionally recognised body. This is the point of it being a constitution. It comes with the weight of the constitution. It's not just a simple little, like, you know, thing off to the side. It is a constitutionally enshrined body. That comes with some gusto, you know. To act against that is almost to act against the constitutional values of Australia. Now, there's writing there that you can act against it, so it's not going to be treason or anything like that if you act against it. But it comes with importance and it comes with integrity. So it's more of a force, let's say, than just one person going up and saying. And on that point, people have been screaming in Aboriginal communities for more funding, to build houses, to get people into a point where that they can look after themselves and fend for themselves. There's no economic, like, what's the word? There's no economic, like, futures for these people. Do you know of resignation syndrome? So resignation syndrome happens in kids from low socioeconomic schools. And it's when these kids go in and they realise that, I'm not going anywhere. Like, this isn't working for me. So they just resign from it. They go, nah, withdraw, whatever, I don't care. This isn't for me. I'm just going to sit at the back of class, or I'm going to wag, I'm going to go smoke and drink, and, you know, I'm not coming to school anymore. So that's pretty much what happens. So you've got no economic future. You've barely got jobs in a lot of these communities. You've barely got houses that can fit people in these communities. You know, so that comes with a whole nother round of issues. You know, you don't have houses, you don't have infrastructure, you've got nothing fun to do because you don't have infrastructure. Your family doesn't have a car. You're living on your parents' floor. So of course, like, you know, you just stop and you just give up, you know. So then you need to build these things. And I think through the Voice, like, stuff like that is going to come more to light and come to show that we actually care about, like, these people in these communities actually care about these communities. You know, you look at the housing and stuff like that, and yeah, it's dilapidated, but they've got 20 people living in one house built for 4 people. So that means it's going to get worn 5 times as fast. Plus, they've got no upkeep or can't afford cleaning products, can't afford all of this stuff because they can't get jobs because there's no jobs in the communities. You know, like, it's this massive stack of just problems where if you fix one, you've still got 4 others. And the only people that know how to fix it are people from communities and in communities because it's their reality. Like, they don't come down to, Parliament and go, oh, we could fix this place up if we just had, a bit of stuff from the bush. But yet everyone else comes up there and they've all got the answers. No one consults. No one cares. The government goes to the government's friends to build the houses for them that don't get built, that take twice as much time and cost 4 times as much because people are just clipping the ticket.
Yep. Yeah. Where do you think this issue stems from in the communities? You said there's a lot to be fixed.
There is a lot to be fixed. It's trauma, firstly. Like, a lot of these communities have serious trauma that is just unaddressed. And, trauma leads to addictions and abuses and stuff like that. And that leads to more problems. But to fix it, you need a goal. You need somewhere to go. You need something to do. So starting that, self-determination, is a good start. The community of Guningarra, they could not get anything done there. So if you look it up, they just recently, a couple of years, maybe not a couple of years ago, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, Guangarra. I think that's it. That one there. That's not it. Look up Ski Beach community. And look up Ski Beach community land lease. Or just lease.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. So they could get nothing done in Ski Beach. This is Ski Beach here. This is where the Yunupinga family, my Gumatj family live.
Yep.
And it looks nice and pretty from there, but it's still, quite run down. And so they couldn't get anything done there. They couldn't get houses built. They couldn't get, they couldn't develop in the way that they wanted. They wanted to build a school, but they couldn't get the government to sign off on it. They wanted to, open up a shop at the top corner shop. Up there near the Oval is a corner shop. Now it sells coffee every morning for people that are going to work to get up and go get a coffee. It's amazing. It sells plants for your gardens and stuff like that. So it's nice, but they couldn't get it done because there's too much bureaucratic red tape. And so what they had to do in order to beat that and, get over that hump is they had to end up buying a 99-year town lease over the land. So they've done that. They've got it. Now they can build houses. They're building houses as we speak. They've built about 4-5 houses in the last, couple years.
After 10 years of negotiations.
10 years of negotiations it took. It's insane how slow things go when Aboriginal people are trying to get a bit of agency around the way that they live. In previous communities, you've got to put in to get your door hinge replaced or your sink fixed, you've got to put in a maintenance report. They are government-owned places and stuff, but it takes ages and ages to get anything done. Have you guys ever been in an Aboriginal community?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, have you been inside a house?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, what's it like?
Yeah, it's not decent.
It's not decent at all. No. But you look at all these things that I'm telling you about, housing, living with people, living with kids, a lot of young kids, a lot of trauma, a lot of, not a lot of money to get the nice things that we like to get that make our rooms look nice. We can't get the plants or the nice table or the nice couch that lasts. You get the second-hand couch or you get the couch from your uncle and it goes down and then, what do you do? So, I think that the main thing you need to do to fix it is give agency to Aboriginal communities. And let them develop how they want to develop. We've got a budget. We have a budget for Aboriginal communities. Yet, the people that control that budget sit in Parliament House here, sit in Parliament House down south, with no representation from our mob up here, or little representation from our mob up here. And the fact of the matter is, you get more representation, you get more results. If you do it yourself, you're going to do it how you want to do it. You're not going to rort the system. You're not going to do it because it's yours. It's not someone else's. That's yours now. And once you give people that ownership over where they belong in and where they live and where their home is, you see the passion build and you see that connection to their country and their connection, grow and flourish, and then they start getting more respect for where they live, and they start developing and growing. But the government doesn't trust Aboriginal people. Like, it's conspiracy theory 101, but almost fair enough. We have trouble in our communities, but we also, this is why the voice is important. So we have trouble in our communities, yes, we can all agree on that. Trouble from traumatic events. But we, as Aboriginal people, can work together with, the government and white people to come together and make proper solutions for this. Like the medical specialists and you guys, I don't hate white Australia, and I don't think anyone should hate white Australia. Like, we have a very terrible, terrible past, and, we need to reconcile that. And this is the first way to do it. But we've got this one side of you guys who, well, maybe not you guys, sorry, but, European Australians and actually, you guys, specialists, technical people that are doctors, nurses, health professionals, educators, lawyers, scientists, builders, we want to be able to do that stuff too. This is the matter. We are one society at the moment. We want to be able to do it, and we want to be able to flourish and have you guys help us be the best that we can be. This isn't about putting us in with you. This is about getting the best out of this and helping it to make us, better and us back to normal like we used to be, like strong, very strong Aboriginal communities, and be better and take us into the future, take us into the next level. Because at the last, history of Australia, we've been, kicked down and kicked down and kicked down and kicked down. We've had our little wins here and there, but, on the whole, we've been really, really tough off. And if you do a deep dive into Aboriginal history, it's, it is very, 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 obvious.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. Do you think that funding, I agree with the point that the more autonomy means, the more responsibility means, the more progress that's going to be done. You can see that on an individual level, and you could probably see that on a group level too. Do you think that more funding will directly be correlated to more progress?
So I don't think it's even about the funding. We don't need more funding. We've already got the funding. We get the funding every year. It's about using that in ways that, ways that are effective in the community. We put 2 billion or whatever. I don't know the actual numbers. I'm not going to get the budget up because it doesn't matter. It's a hypothetical. Say we get $2 billion for Aboriginal affairs this year. If the best value of money would be to let the community figure out the best way to deal with it, or give the community and the leaders autonomy to, from each community around Australia, to use it in the way that's most effective for their community. So education programs. It's not everything. It's not give them $2 billion, first of all. It's just let the funding go and let them make the decision on who it goes with and what things to, put it into. FAFT is a good example. Family as First Teachers. You see out in Galawinku that FAFT is actually getting resounding results. FAFT at Guningyara, Dupama Barker School, has got 100% attendance rate. Where else do you see that? You don't even see that in Darwin, 100% attendance rate at school. It's crazy because you get money given for FAFT, for Family as First Teachers, but we still struggle to get FAFT in communities and programs. So who would give that agency? Would the people who are already doing what they're doing, thinking that they're doing right, from government do it? Or would the community go, hey, this program is amazing. It's giving my kids real results at school. It's keeping them engaged, and it's teaching them in a curriculum that they can understand, which means they are getting more skilled. And the kids out there, man, are just amazing. The smartest kids you've ever met in your life. It's once you give them the chance, it is just crazy. They're just born with this autonomous freedom to just move and act and speak and, think for themselves. And, that is really special. So programs like that enable that would be more effective. So you're still spending the $2 billion. You're not spending, we're not asking, we want $8 billion next year. We're saying we want the $2 billion, but we want to spend it how we see is most effective. And the NT is different from Queensland. Queensland is different from SA. SA is different from WA. That's why the voice is so important. There's this other concept of multilateral fiscalisation, which is a mouthful. And that's pretty much how the government equates the funding for one Aboriginal person, which is so weird to say. It sounds dirty, that. But for one Aboriginal person. So one Aboriginal person in a community in the NT is getting the same amount of funding as one Aboriginal person who lives on Lygon Street in Melbourne. So we can understand that, and it's not obvious to see that there are vast challenges, different challenges from, no disrespect to the Victorian mob, but there's vast difference in challenges. Like, they have different issues than we have. In order to, make the most out of that, you've got to tailor it. And currently, we're happy with a blanket fix for this. We're happy doing it. That's why the gaps aren't closing. That's why we're not seeing results. So to me, like, being involved in all this for my whole life, pretty much, just it is a simple idea for me. But for other people, it's hard to wrap your head around.
When did it become contentious, this issue?
Well, in 2017, when we released the original Uluru Statement from the Heart, it wasn't contentious. It was loving and it was beautiful, and we were happy for it. But then it got thrown away.
What drove? Sorry, just to interrupt you. What drove Indigenous peoples to make the Uluru Statement from the Heart?
So remote communities, like I was explaining before, just weren't getting listened to. The multilateral fiscalisation stuff. There's so much research done on the agency of Aboriginal communities and the lack of results that we're getting. If you say that you come to me today in 2017 and you said, I didn't realise that Aboriginal communities were doing so bad, I'd say you are a liar. It is plastered all over the news. It is in every single paper. It is, you go into uni and, every second uni course has got a Aboriginal concept to it, whether it's health or, sport or education, and which is good because it's involving us in there. But in each of those lessons, I teach you that we are the most, the worst off in this country, statistically. Most imprisoned, lowest life expectancy, highest infant mortality. So we are. Look at them three. They're massive indicators of life quality. Anyway, so it come to fruition because we're not getting listened to, and it wasn't really like, if we look at the board over there, the timeline. Sorry, we get back to it, and just go down a little bit up.
20.
So one of the big things I reckon that led into it was the Sorry Day. We got Sorry Day, which is great. It was a moment where Kevin Rudd, I think, got up and said sorry, and then he got down and he continued with his day. And I know my mob especially, and my people sat there and went, what now? Where do we go? What do we do? Because that was it. That was our representation. That was that was it. We got sorry. So what's the difference between sorry and this idea of the voice now? Sorry was just simply symbolic. Symbolic gesture. These ones, hey, sorry, mate. Apologies. Thanks, mate. Bye. And then we continue to be the highest incarcerated, the highest infant mortality, lowest life expectancy. So we've gone through, I think it was 9 years since then, and nothing had changed. Also the NT intervention, but I'll get into that at another time. And, everyone was sick of it. We're fed up. Aboriginal people are fed up. Communities are fed up with people trying to fix their problems for them, trying to impose their solutions that just don't translate. And for us, we look for key markers of it, like Sorry Day and stuff like that. But for these people and these leaders that are, pushing for their people and their communities to get better, it's just a reality. It's just a day-to-day, you know? It is just a matter of fact for them that they're not getting the help that they need. It doesn't matter how much they ask, doesn't matter how much they go to the Member of Parliament and say, mate, we need more houses. I can't keep living on the floor of the, living room of my mother's place, my grandmother's place, or my auntie's place. It doesn't come through. Doesn't matter how much, you can see on the board how much we've done activism, we've done politics, we've done, done everything on the table you could possibly do. And we still are the worse off because we still don't have a say in how our communities are run. And it's almost like as simple as that. Like the question that is getting asked is, do you recognise, in recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples as the first people of Australia, there should be a body to be called the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice may make representations to Parliament and the Executive Government of the Commonwealth on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have power to make laws in respect to matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice, including its composition, functions, powers and procedures. Now, that's all we're asking for. We're not telling you to change your life or take things away or give us all your money or we're going to take your backyards like they were saying in the 1967 referendum. We just want this. And we are all so caught up in the hype of the politics at the moment and this is wrong and this is right and the TikTok videos and vote no and vote yes, that it's as simple as this, really. This is the only thing that is going to change. A proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise First Peoples of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration? Like, what comes with that isn't all the nonsense that you're hearing about on the news and that you're hearing about from the Australian, that you're hearing about on TikTok from Jacinta Price and Pauline and Warren Mundine, and they're going to take our sovereignty away or they're going to, take all our land. It's not that. It's not even divisive. This is an inclusive bit of legislation. There's no division. There's no way of saying, we're actually going to give Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people more. It's just saying we're going to let them come and tell us what they need to fix the problems. And it's as simple as that. Like, honestly, for me, I see it clearly, but I understand why people are scared. I understand why people, may not agree with it in some instances, and I can understand especially why Aboriginal communities are afraid of it, because the last time we were included in it, it was saying that we weren't allowed to vote and we weren't people, pretty much.
Is there warrant though to Jacinta Price, Warren Mundine's statements that they're going to be divisive, or you give no credit to that?
I give no credit to that. I think that it's dividing them, that group, from having all the decision making on our lives. I think that's the one thing that they're worried about. The division of this isn't going to be nationwide. It's not putting us over there in the corner and saying, we don't want to know you. It's saying we want you to involve us in your laws. We want you to give us some power so that we can help ourselves. It's not saying we want to come in to here and make you do all the work for us. It's saying we want to fix it, and we want to fix it the way we want to fix it. Not how you've been trying to fix it for the past, however many years, and have been failing for the past however many years. It's I don't know, I feel like besides all the politics and the division and this, like if you sit there with yourself and you look at the question and you go, all right, what does that mean? It kind of makes it clear to me, but that's for people to do themselves. I can't change everyone's mind. If someone's a no voter, I can't make them get on the thing and write down yes, because we're in a democracy. And this is the fact of the matter. And, I'm kind of sick and tired of being the plaything for all these political parties. With the voice, we get more agency to fix our own problems. We're not going to be chucked around like a token at election day. Or I'll fix the Aboriginal housing crisis, or I'll fix the Aboriginal education problem. No, we will fix the Aboriginal education problem and the housing crisis through the voice, through our own agency,
Yeah, I hear you. I was just going to say, it's been brought up now. You say that Australians do have a heart to fix these issues. They do have a heart to help Indigenous communities. If that was true, and I'm not saying that it's not true, I'm not saying it is true, but if that was true, then why has there been so much segregation and division over this issue already?
It's a deliberate political ploy by the Liberal Party and the No campaign. So for people to be divided is only a product of what's been put out there. So the media's there for a reason, you know. They jump and they report on things that, you know, are trending and whatever. So if they kick up enough stink about this being divisive or this being it's going to take our land or Aboriginal people from the bush don't believe in this, the media just jumps on it and you know, inflates the problem. So it's not, and you look at all of the things around the, you know, the No campaign and what they're doing, none of them are actually talking about that question we looked at before. None of them have said, you know, have even said about, you know, the actual question, like, will you just accept Aboriginal people in your constitution and let them fix their problems? They're all about other stuff. They're distraction. They're a fear-mongering tactic to get people to vote no, which is, you know, that's their bread and butter, the Liberal Party and some, well, not all the Liberal Party, let's cut that there, but the people that are running this No campaign, whom I've mentioned before and I won't mention again because I don't want to name drop them, but it's a deliberate tactic. And they've got one of those people I was talking about before, there we can see her on the screen, up the front, telling people lies, telling people false things and, you know, pretty much wearing blackface as she does it. So could I get something up, please? Will that come through with on this, or is it just like
you want a sound?
A video?
Yeah, get it up.
Sure.
We'll get it up. But when you say is I can bleep that name out, is wearing blackface.
Yeah.
How is she doing that if she's Indigenous herself?
Because she talks like she represents Aboriginal people. You see at the start of this podcast, I come out and I said, you know, this is about my life and this is about my people. I'm not talking on behalf of anyone else. She's more than happy to talk on behalf of anyone else. She's going around and she's dirtying Aboriginal people's name. Like, you can see that she's not allowed on her own country anymore. She got banned by the Warlpiri people. She can come back now because he's invited her to like meetings and stuff to come and air her queries. But she goes around and she spurts these things out. One thing is true, 10 things are fake, 10 things are lies. People hear the one thing that's true and think, wow, she's onto something. And then she just rubs our head in the dirt. It's, Central Land Council leaders say needs to stop pretending we are her people. And this is everyone in Australia. I'll bet you right now, Addy, next time you go to Bagot community, if you ever go into Bagot community, go in there and say, hey, brother, does represent you? Like, do you like her? And listen to what they say. There won't be very good things. And she may be an Aboriginal person, but, you know, this is what I mean by representation in Parliament, first and foremost. She's a member of Parliament. She does not represent the goodwill or the views of these communities, though she would like to. Though she says she does. It's a fact of the matter that she doesn't. And we've seen it over and over and over and over. While she gets money and gets richer, these communities get poorer and stay in their trouble. This is why we're happy to sit in the structure that we have today. And that's why we're happy for the Liberal Party to keep doing that and going, no, we don't want to vote. It's going to divide us. It's going to make division. Because they're happy to collect the cash and they're happy to make the money. They're not happy to actually do the right thing and fix it, which is their job.
But I think has some like very valid points, man.
There, she's got ya. There we go. This is what I was talking about. One right thing, 10 wrong things.
The thing that I do agree with her tremendously on is when she was vocal about alcohol into the Indigenous communities. At that time, Labor, Natasha Files, was the one advocating for the bans to be lifted.
Yeah.
People saying no, this is gonna ruin these communities. It's gonna run rampant on these communities. The violence is gonna go up, and it's not gonna be white people that are affected. It's actually gonna be Indigenous women and children that are affected from these issues. Labor, Natasha Files, didn't want race-based views, and it was actually Labor that would have profited from this uplifting because of the money from alcohol. Like, or the Liberal Party didn't need that money.
Yeah, very true. But, it was running up. The thing was running up. The ban was running up. Are we ever going to... do you see Aboriginal people not drinking now out on the streets? It's not about not letting them drink. It's about finding a way to fix that problem. Like, we talk about banning stuff. That's a good way to stop it in that area. It's not a good way to fix the problem. It's a Band-Aid.
But man,
so I agree with you. The problem was bad, and the problem, like I said before, we have serious problems in Aboriginal communities. Like, I'm not denying that fact. And the fact that Natasha Files was in Parliament when that, when it comes through, and she said, no, we don't want race-based politics or whatever, probably not the right decision, because it did cause a lot of trouble. But, if we have more power as the voice to make these decisions, a lot of these communities will probably say, no, we don't want drinking still, because it's bad. But what they'll also say is, we want some programs to help fix the alcohol problem, alcoholism, because it's a behaviour. And if you live in a traumatic kind of situation with really terrible, no outcomes, overcrowding, I've said it all before, if you live in that situation, that's your only release. And it leads to problems because you've got trauma. And when you're living that low on the, on the poverty line, you can't let anyone take anything from you. And I'm not giving defense to people, like fighting and hurting people, or killing people, or doing anything. But in these communities, if someone tries to take something from you, you have to back it up, or else it's going to happen over and over. And the fact of the matter that Labor was in government, like the whole Labor Liberal thing is, at the end of the day, it's nothing. Like, we like to point the fingers at who does what and who takes stuff away and who takes things back and who's doing this for that. But the problem is, there's no agency there. If we had more agency, we'd make our own rules regarding alcohol and grog that you see in heaps of communities. There's a resounding effect with social clubs. Social club is when, you get a Wednesday night to go and have some beers, and it's properly owned, it's properly run, it's community driven, and you see people come together, have a couple drinks. Sometimes there's trouble. When is there not trouble when there's drinking involved? You go on Mitchell Street, you see 5 white guys belting each other half the time, So you do get trouble with it, but it's controlled, and it's an environment with their family and their friends, and they don't have to pay $200 for a bottle of Jack Daniels. They can get 5 to 6 drinks and go home. And you see a resounding effect. That is an example of how the voice can empower proper behaviours in communities, because just banning things, not stopping people from doing it.
Well, wait, so I just got lost on where you were going with that. So what is the actual implementation of just 5, 6 drinks at home? And
No. So it's a social club. So you can go to a social club and you can drink at the social club, and then you go home afterwards.
Yep, sure.
And it's open until certain hours, only on certain days. I think Tiwi Islands has got this. So yeah, Tiwi Islands has got it. And when you have poverty, you see crime. You see out, like, and it gets inflated, and you go, oh, these people can't control themselves. But when you're in poverty, there's crime. It's everywhere, overseas, here, wherever. So for there to be fights and stuff when alcohol gets involved, is it the people or is it the situation they're put in? You put a dog in a cage and you poke him with a stick, he's going to bite you. So that's just one side of it. That's my side of it. And I understand that alcoholism is rampant and it's not good and it's not healthy, but the solutions that are being put forward right now aren't fixing it. Solutions that can be driven by community might fix it better than this way. But if it doesn't, we can still keep going this way if you want. Like, not every solution from the voice is going to fix every problem. But will it make an impact? Probably. Will it help 5%? Probably. Is 25% better than 20%? Definitely. Will that compound? Maybe. Who knows? But people are looking at this with like how they look at every Aboriginal issue. Deficit language, deficit thinking. You know, they can't handle themselves. They can't do this or do that. They, you know. Start framing it in a positive framework for people. Give these people power to take control of their lives, you know. That's the first good step. And from that leads to treaty, leads to Makarrata, leads to us coming together as a whole nation, finally, you know, since 1788. To me, I think I like the idea. To some people, they're a bit worried. But, you know, I've seen both sides of this world and this society we live in. I've seen the bad side and I've seen the good side. And we can meet in the middle. It's not hard. There's money there to do it. We just have to use it right. And that's the main thing, using your money right.
Do you think that the Labor Party, well, let's not even say the parties.
Yeah.
The no campaign, you said, is playing into this fear-mongering, et cetera, playing down to people who are unsure about this issue and trying to get them on board. Are the Yes campaigners doing that as well?
I think they're playing into, like, not really a fear factor or a fear-mongering. They're trying to play on, like, I'll tell you, so if you can see it there, if you don't know, vote no is the motto of the no campaign. Let's just start now before we get into a bit more. That is the most uninformed and probably, you know, racist ideology I've seen. If you don't know, don't just vote no. You know, I don't know. We live in the 21st century. Where's your phone? You can go like this and go, hey Siri, what is some information on the Voice to Parliament? Need Face ID, but there we have it.
Yeah.
Regardless, you'd have it. And then you just spend 5 minutes and read it. You know, whether they give you that information that the no campaign's spitting out or the good information. But I don't really like the way the no campaign's doing it either. Like, you know, I mean, the Yes campaign's doing it either, sorry. Like, I don't really like how the Yes campaign's doing it. To me, it's not very, at the moment, I guess, it's not very powerful. It's very loving and, you know, we're playing into the kindness of other people's hearts, you know? Playing into, you know, people's generosity and goodwill. Where, you know, I think we're losing people because we're not saying that, you know, we're not being, this is the practical ways to do it, like how I've put some of them out there. And we're not, well, I haven't seen yet us go out to some communities and just lay it out for them and say, you know, this is what's going on. I'm currently at the moment trying to do meetings with every NTFL club after a training session just to talk to people about it. I don't want to give them my perspective or not my perspective, but my choice. Like, obviously I'm a yes voter, but I don't want to I'm not projecting that onto people. I want to go and I want to lay out the facts, lay out some of the misinformation that is, you know, fixed, because there's been a lot of information put out that has been proven to be false or misleading. Or it may not be worded as being deliberately false, but it's misleading.
Can we run through that?
Yeah, you want to have a look at some?
Yep. Here, I've got this pamphlet here if you want to.
Oh, beautiful. All right, the referendum booklet. Yeah, if you want to get the thing up, there's so many. There's fact checked from UNSW. If you could look that up. But yeah, it's pretty terrible. And once you it's hard because not many people actually know about Aboriginal communities and issues like to the depth that you can actually understand why it's incorrect. A lot of people know Aboriginal issues as face value, you know, violence, car robberies, theft, you know, when they're actually really complex problems that, you know, link into economics and link into health and link into education, and all these things compound on top of each other. Anyway, so one was, do Aboriginal people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people support the Voice? 80% to 83% of Aboriginal people across Australia, according to that, support the Voice. So they're, as any kind of demographic in Australia of, you know, race or, you know, people, you're never going to get 100%. There's always going to be people that are, you know, against it or, not for it. Will the voice insert race into the Constitution? I kind of touched on this before, where there's already race, and, the White Australia policy, like it says there, was something that ran rampant and affected probably a lot of our ancestors. We've shared that as something, which is something that the government done. They also used to have us assimilation and protectivism laws, which meant that if we wanted to go out into the community and live a regular life, we had to actually give up Aboriginality. We had to sign it away on a piece of paper, and then we could go off and we could go into town and we could see everyone. Where else, if we didn't, we had to stay on the outskirts of town and live in humpies, and we weren't able to buy food. We had to hunt food and, live very, very badly. There's another one. I've got it on my Instagram, actually. If we
can pull that up. Do you have Instagram on there, Carla?
Yeah.
Anticipating, I'm not going to really read this off, but we'll go across.
Yep.
We can all see it, yes and no. All right, the yes claims are informed by the vast weight of opinion from legal experts. So legal experts who have considered the wording of the draft amendment on what the Australian people will be voting. They reflect the government's publicly agreed commitments for the future design of the voice. So the voice, again, was the largest consultation of Aboriginal people in the history of mankind in Australia over the year that got denied by Malcolm Turnbull at the start. So the largest. I didn't mention that before. So some ideas from the Yes campaign. The idea comes from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So it comes from the voice. It's not coming from government. Doesn't come from Labor. Doesn't come from Liberal. It's coming from this document. While Labor's the one that is pushing it, it's come from, its heart is the voice. At the core of this thing is this beautiful little program that these old people had, where they come together from all their communities across Australia and said, we need to fix this. We need constitutional recognition of our people, and we need a voice that can air our laws out and let us actually get some of our solutions out there. Anyway, so listening will mean better results and better value for money. I explained that one before. It's a general claim supported by research. I think there's something like we see community run programs in Aboriginal communities do about 60% to 80% better than any other one. So community-led programs are proven to be better value for money. But I don't like to think about it in money terms. I like to think about it in the better for the community, better for the people. Parliament and government are still responsible for laws, programs and funding. True. So in the last clause of the voice, they are still the last say. That's what it outlines. So it doesn't underpin our democracy. And also in that, the last clause of the question actually enables the voice to grow and to shrink in levels in a way that is, works for it. So as we develop as a society, there might be need for more representation. So there's ability for us to, do that and get more representation. But there's also ability for us to choose how to release it, Well, while we won't be able to get rid of it without another constitution, there's enough. If we get to a point in Australia, like everyone says, this is just going to inflate our bloody problem, But if we get to a point where a miracle, we've solved all problems in Aboriginal communities, and we've solved all problems, and we're living equally and equal standing in this society, then we could say, we'll shrink it right down. And then we only need a couple people in there to help us out because we've got proper representation now. We've got our structures in our community that allow us to work like a proper electorate. And then the voice would just be there to help and to lubricate the process, really. So that is something I like to tell people because people think it's going to be rigid like that. It's actually going to flow and move around how we shape our society in the future. All right, now the No campaign. In contrast, the claims to support the No case are largely misleading. So this is fact-checked from, who is it actually? It's constitutional law experts from UNSW, which is the largest university in New South Wales. So the most prestigious in New South Wales. Probably liberal-leaning people too. Anyway.
Would you say?
I would say, yeah.
I would say no university in Australia is liberal leaning.
Have you been to UNSW?
No,
It's
I haven't.
pretty flash. Anyway, but you're right. They probably are more democratic. That was a bit of sauce up there.
a bit of yeah, mayo.
Anyway, so they are largely misleading. Many of the claims simply ignore the existence of contrary facts and history. So just in that point, there should be a serious red flag for some people. You know, they're ignoring facts and history, and they're misleading people. Not a good combination for a nationwide, media campaign. Anyway, the details, there are no details. So this is inaccurate. Full details have been provided about in the constitutional amendment. So people are saying they don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how it's going to work or how it's going to act or what we're even getting asked. And that's a lie. You can read it in the booklet. Everyone goes send a booklet. It divides us.
But hang on, just on that point, isn't all we've gotten the constitutional amendment writing that they're going to put in? Like, what else do we know about how it's going to work in practice?
The structure, we know it's going to be a recommendation body. We know it's non-final. We know that. We know it's going to work through representation of states and communities from states through elected people. So we know that. We know that it's going to be an elected body of people that is sitting beside Parliament and making sure that the laws that are being made about communities, Aboriginal communities and people, are in good light. So we know that. So that's pretty much the structure of the whole thing. Simply, that is what it'll do.
But okay, so if it is that simple, then why is there kind of two sides of this where it's almost like do your research, dive depth into this issue, find out what's going on, find out what's it going to be like. And then there's this side, and it's almost both from the Yes campaign that I'm seeing. It's one side of like, hey, this is a complex issue, do your research, and one side of it's like, hey, this is pretty simple, like vote yes. Yeah. What's that contradiction?
So I think that's, some people in Australia aren't really politically minded. Let's just put it like that. Like, people don't quite understand the politics behind it. Some people do, and some people understand, oh yeah, we should give Aboriginal people a voice. So yes, vote yes. And it's as simple as that. Other people, like myself, are kind of on the forefront of it, going, hey guys, you need to actually know about what's happening here. Like that side is predominantly aimed at the no campaign or the people in the middle. Whereas the people who are very happy-go-lucky, I'm going yes, are going, no, vote yes. Whereas the other side is saying, you guys need to do your research and figure out, not to the already yes people, but the undecided. So in the polls recently, the numbers, they're a bit conflated. I think we're losing 53% to 47. 41 minutes. Here we go.
Okay.
Brand new. Oh.
Yeah, it's a little bit, why do they present it like that?
Yeah, I don't get that. Anyway, whatever. We're on the downside. But the upside to that is for us is that they don't really count the undecided voters. So undecided voters are up on the fence. And that group of undecided voters is bigger than both other groups combined. So there's a large portion of undecided voters. Majority are youth and young people. So as, a young person, the best thing you can do, 18 and up, is get enrolled to vote, because we are the future. This is going to affect us. This isn't going to affect the people, in their 60s and 50s and 70s. Like they're not even working anymore, but they're some of the loudest people out there. So, which is terrible. But those people are rooted in, in policy that they grew up with. So you can't blame them for, being behaved in a way. You can blame them for being racist and being, ignorant, but you can't blame them for being brought up in a system that has taught them to act in a way that is like that. Yeah.
Is there some merit to their opinions though? Like, the older generations, I try and hear them out as much as I possibly can, because they have seen where, you know, their generation has gone. They've gone with the flow. There could be like very, you know, very prominent concern for the future generations. Like maybe it's almost like, hey, you can lead this generation, but let us guide you. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I think you look at that now, and you look at what was taught back then in their era. You know, back in assimilationist era and protectionist era. You know, Aboriginal people were seen as animals still. You know, so as a 60-year-old, like my nana was still alive now. She would have been. She back then when she was younger, she would have been seen as an animal, which is, you know, which is not good. And that is the mentality that they fostered. That's what they thought. And good for nothing, you know, can't work, can't do this, when in reality we were the backbone of the cattle industry, we were the backbone of the stockman industry. We were competent, we knew the land, we knew everything. We would, and it's, you know, pretty proven. So the people that are that far right know, and that far, you know, built in their ways, are just simply uninformed. Like you're talking to me now here, an Aboriginal person, whereas those people would probably see me and go, oh, like, don't know about that guy, simply because I'm Aboriginal. When, as you can tell, I'm able to speak and talk competently and, you know, competently sometimes, and, you know, maintain myself, think politically. We see so many Aboriginal people succeeding today, but we also see so many fail. We're kind of living in this success and, you know, failure there, success and massive grey area where no one is.
Yeah.
And, you know, we need more people to come up. We don't need more people to go down. So if we get no to this, more people will come down instead of going up.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, I think that the fact of the matter with them, and if they're trying to guide us, they're not guiding us towards a positive future. They're regressing us rather than guiding us. The people are trying to regress us back to their views and their reality, because back in that time, life was good. And that's fair enough for them. They, you know, I look back at photos of the 70s and 80s and stuff like that, and I think, wow, that would have been a great time to live in. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't a great time for us to live in. And as a society, we had different challenges. You know, we had way different challenges. They had wars, and they had an economic crisis. So, you know, they had problems. We have a different society. We've got better technology. We've got ways that we can impact. We can travel better. We can move better. We can, you know, we can fix our problems better. We've got better health systems. We've got better, you know, well, that one's up for debate, but, you know, we've got better technology to help is the point.
Yeah.
So, you know, we live in a different society, and from the 80s until now, we know how much it's changed. You know, it's just blown, like the whole technology has gone from here to, you know, through the roof, where, you know, we've got phones and everything, with technology we can help, we can look up the problem. Oh, why is it bad to vote no? Siri, why is it, don't do it though, Siri. Why is it bad to vote no? You know, we can get the answers, we can understand it. We can empathise with Aboriginal people better, and we can understand that we aren't a problem because we want to be a problem. We are a problem because history has forced us into the box of being a problem. Ever since 1788, we have been a problem. Now we're trying to fix our problems and fix our communities and get back to us being strong, powerful people, which a lot of us are. And shout out to all the black kings and queens out there that are, you know, doing well all across Australia. Look after yourselves. It's a rough time.
I do agree with you, man. I think ignorance is probably one of the enemies of most people. Like,
I think in that too, with ignorance, like Australia was ignorant. You know, we were ignorant. We had policies that were ignorant. We had policies that were racist. We had a policy called White Australia policy. You know, like the national policy. We don't represent that anymore. You know, we don't represent that side of society, or that side of, you know, of people, or that attitude or belief. And I feel like majority of the young people now want to get rid of that. They want, you know, they don't want to be just white fellas or just black fellas or, you know, whatever demographic. We want to be a society. And voting no doesn't make us any closer to a society than voting yes does, because voting yes actually pulls us closer towards an inclusive society where we can, as 2% of the population and the worst off, we can help ourselves get better without you guys mucking it all up, or you guys can help us get better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, yeah, it's a whole really complicated situation where historical factors drive into this a lot. And, you know, I honestly feel if we want to move together towards a new society, we need to start doing things differently. We are different from our past. And we can do that together and move forward and act differently, work differently in different ways and build together. You know, it's not dividing us, or like they say it is. It's not separating us anymore. It's just giving us ownership of what is ours, you know, our communities. It's not us taking your backyards. It's just us fixing us.
Do you think in order to move forward, Australia has to reconcile with the past, or do you think Australia can move forward by just moving forward?
I think Australia will move forward by just moving forward, but will it move in the direction that we as a society want it to? You know, like if we want to be at one with our, you know, nation and with our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, we do need to acknowledge that there has been wrongdoings. And like it has been acknowledged, but you know, we still want to deny it. You know, we don't want to we want to get up there and say sorry for doing all of this, new mob, apologies, but we don't want to give the structure to fix it. We don't want to give up that little bit of power to help fix the problem, but we want to do something symbolic to say we fixed it. And that's what I think Dutton's going to try and do with his, you know, he's just come out today and said, if this fails, I'm going to go for another referendum, which his argument in the first place is it costs too much money, which it does. It costs a lot of money to run a referendum. His argument was, I'm just going to do another one, and that'll be a symbolic gesture of nothing. And it'll completely undermine all the hard work of the elders that have just come and gone. But, you know, it's just, I just can't believe it, you know?
Yeah.
And you see this in a lot of the no arguments is they say one thing and then they do the other. You know, why would Albanese want to waste $350 million on The Voice? You know, it's on a referendum. It's bloody insane. And then they come out and go, if this fails, we'll do another one. What kind of logic is that? You know, this is divisive, but then they play into, you know, little modes of dividing people. Like they use tactics to divide people, you know. It's just, to me, like, I've been with this thing here, the Uluru Statement from the Heart, since 2015. My mum is written on the poster. You can see her. Where is she? There. Denise Bowden. That's Denise Bowden. That's my mum.
There you go.
This here is not my father, but we call him Babala, from Joe and Yunupingu there. That is a family friend. That's a friend up there, a family friend. We've got more friends in here. So this is a journey that me and my family have been on since its conception, especially with the old man from, you know, Yunupingu, who wanted this because he wanted to make things right. He didn't want you to make things right and fix it. He wanted to make things right because it's his right to his community and his people to look after them. And if you can't build houses to house your community, when you need houses to house your community, how are you looking after your people?
Yep. Can we just go back to the proposed wording of the Constitution, Carla?
Yep.
So it says... Hang on, let me just...
I'm really liking the aircon kicking in.
It's kicking in, isn't it?
I get pretty into talking, and I'm glad I've got the hoodie on. I get a bit sweaty.
Okay, so Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice may make representations to the Parliament and the Executive Government of the Commonwealth on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
Yep.
What's stopping the Voice from making recommendations to Parliament and Government on every single policy or amendment or anything that's been changed. So there could be a proposed, funding going to New South Wales housing, and the Voice could say, well, why are they getting housing? Why don't the communities get housing? Which is a very, very valid concern. But the concern, I think, with a lot of people is, if we are a democracy, if we are seen as one, if Australia under the Constitution is seen as one people, then every policy that is implemented affects everyone equally, right? No one is above the law. So what is stopping them from literally just recommending changes to every policy that's...
Yeah. Okay, I'll just jump in there, and like the fact that every policy affects everyone equally is not true. Like, policy affects specific people differently, depending on location, demographic. Well, they try and weed out demographic, but things in Australia are often, or have been often, worded or lean in ways that they affect certain demographics a bit more, whether it's through area restrictions, like, or whatever. Sorry. But the way that it stops it is that it's not the final decision. They can say, yes, give us, 20 million for public, give us 15, which they don't want 15 million. They've already got the money. This is the thing I was trying to say before. We have an Indigenous affairs budget. That's enough. With 4% of the population, that's enough money to fix the problems if it's used right. But they're not used right, and they seem to get lost. Have a look at something here. Sorry, look up NT 500 million missing NT budget. But you're right. That's a very fair assumption to have, and everything like that. But we're not looking to get more money. We're looking to use the money better. So while where's it gone? There you go. I think so. Nah, it's not that one. Anyway, I can't find it. It was on The Guardian or something like that. The Age.
I'll have a look.
It was something that my mum helped to find out. Where the hell is it gone? It's making me look really really badly.
It's all right. We're working on the go here.
Yeah. It come out like maybe 2013 or something like that, or 20. Anyway, let's bookshelf that, because
How about you type in misallocated funding or something?
Yeah.
No, nothing.
Yeah, well, that's gone. Anyway, there's this. I know this because my mum helped research it. I can't believe we can't find it, because that's. Yeah, they're onto us. They're onto us, Addie. No, but like there was a lot of money missing, pretty much. Like I said before, the Productivity Commission, only 20% hits the ground. So if we can shift that up to 50% of $20 billion, or however much we get. Sorry, I don't have the number. That does a lot of difference. Same with if we can shift it that we're getting 80% hit the ground. Holy crap. What a change that will make. What if we get 90% hitting the ground? Amazing, Then who knows what we can do? Maybe we'll actually be able to fix the Aboriginal housing crisis that gets chucked around every year. So, like, the fact that people are afraid that we're out here to take money from other people is not at the heart of the Voice. The heart of the Voice is, like I said before, fixing your own communities. Having that power to do it, and getting that money that is already getting spent and using that in ways that are way more effective.
Do you think, though, that my point is this, with such simple wording, we are solely relying on the good hearts of people to do that? Like, this is an assumption that you're making, that this will go to this. I'm sure, there's been countless times in history, people elect politicians based on assumptions of good heart, and then they go in and power corrupts. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm just saying that is a worry. And when I do say that, every piece of legislation or bill or funding affects everyone, I do understand that it's not going to be equally. But my point is that there's not enough wording in the proposed amendment to give it that clarity to say, well, does it have to affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples 60% to make them have a recommendation? Does it have to make them, if that even is possible?
So how I see that is it's deliberately worded short because it's the Constitution. It's a very concise and very tight document that, there's no jumbling around. So in order to go through that would require a lot of wording and a lot of legislative process to understand these little intricacies, maybe not little intricacies, let's just call them the overarching issues. So in Section 3, the Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have power to make laws with respect to matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice, including its composition, functions, powers and procedures. That is where we'll figure it all out at. That's the finer details. That's the ability to change it where we need and for it to reflect society properly. The aim of it is to reflect the societal value, to give us help where we need and to reflect, and so that we can't do that. In addition to that, we've got the anti-corruption agency that has just come through. So I like to think of this as this is the voice is the paper trail. We follow the legislation. We are keeping the legislation on track, making sure our communities are protected because we are the underrepresented. The anti-corruption agency will follow the money. So if 20 billion is getting spent, I'm loving this number, by the way. 20 billion's getting spent, 20% is hitting the ground. That's, what's that, 2 billion, sorry. So 2 billion is hitting the ground. Oh, wow, where's the other 38 billion going? The anti-corruption agency, through the voice, we can say, hey, our money's not getting here. Where's the money going? Oh, who'd you go with? Oh, I went with, PwC. You look into PwC and then you can analyse it from there. So it's a checks and balances almost, where we keep control of the legislative process, which previously has been done behind closed doors. We keep not control, but we keep a watch on the legislative process. And when we see arrears come up, you can go to the anti-corruption agency, because I think we all know that there's something fishy happening somewhere down the line. 20% to hit the ground is just not right. So, I see it as also a checks and balances.
Sure.
So while it's not, intrinsically written into there, it works hand in hand with it. And it's a way that we can stop a lot of companies rorting Aboriginal systems, a lot of public companies too, a lot of bureaucracy and stuff going on. I can't name names because I don't want to and I probably shouldn't. And, it just is sounding more and more like speculation. But, it's obvious. It's obvious to people in communities and people around Australia that something's going wrong here.
Yeah.
We'll just quickly call you to this. It's about accountability and transparency, and that's outlined on the Voice website as well. And it talks about the Anti-Corruption Commission, as you just said, yeah.
Cool. Can you just look into the National Anti-Corruption Commission? I just want to see the wording around it.
Sure. Okay, what do you want to know?
I just want to look at the wording. So,
and this is a really good chat, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it.
Investigates and reports. I'm just going to read this. The National Anti-Corruption Commission is an independent government agency that detects, investigates and reports on serious or systemic corrupt conduct in the Australian government public sector. The NACC also educates public service and the public about corruption, risks and prevention. Cool. All right. What do you have to say to the argument that this is going to clog up the court system? It's going to clog up the High Court. There's going to be very intricate matters about the wording of the Constitution. In turn, it might even clog up the Anti-Corruption Commission if they're having to deal with hundreds of new matters monthly.
Well, that's good. That means we're getting rid of the corruption. If there's 100 more things every month, to me, I know it's a stress on this public agency, but that's what it's there for. It's not there to sit there and go, oh, nothing's happening. It's there to fix corruption. Same with the High Court. The High Court is there to, to fix legislation and, have the final say. So that's their job. If they need more money and more funding and more power, they can easily get it. If there's the need, the government will provide it. And I think the government will realise that if there's 100 cases of corruption coming in every month, that's a serious matter. So whereas we can see it as clogging up the system, or we can see it as helping to close the gap, you know? Like helping to fix these problems. You know, it's just, and this comes to it too, like framing around these conversations we have, like, are we going to clog the system, or are we going to have more justice brought to the case? You know, like it's a lot of deficit thinking, and it's not your fault or anything. It's just a product of the society. It's a subconscious thought. It's a subconscious thing that comes through. Should we be giving 3% of the population all this bloody power, or should we just keep spending $28 million or $18 billion the way we've been spending it and wasting more money? You could put $2 billion of that money into bloody the anti-corruption agency, and there you go. Like, you fix the funding problem, they've got more workers, it becomes unclogged, and we get our problems fixed a bit more. Whereas that probably won't happen because it's specific allocation. It's an idea of the time. It's a positive outcome for all. Getting rid of corrupt organisations. It's great.
That's a cool view to look at it. Actually,
Yeah.
is bring it on.
Yeah.
Is essentially what you're saying.
100%, mate.
If there's more cases, then maybe that means that we're getting to the detail more intricately.
Yeah.
So thank you for that view. That's a great view.
It's like, Matt, like you see it happen everywhere, and like I can assure you there's a couple corruption out there, and if that gets rid of my community, it means my family over in Nhulunbuy get more health outcomes and get more schooling outcomes, and great. That's the core of this. This isn't about putting more stress on the public sector. This is about fixing the problems that we are committed to fix in the closing the gap issue.
Yeah. Let's talk about the anti-intervention. You said you were going to bring that up later.
Oh yeah.
What did that do to Aboriginal peoples and Aboriginal communities?
So it was. This is a I guess a bit of a hot topic, but the anti-intervention was, it outlined current allegations of child abuse and of domestic abuse, which was untrue. It was pretty much a witch hunt. So they didn't find anything, and people backed this in. Parliaments backed this in because through the Anti-Land Rights Act, Aboriginal people are getting more power and getting their land back. Can I just mention something too before we get into this? This is just a question. So what do you guys reckon the most amended bit of legislation is in the history of Australia?
I'm going to guess the anti-intervention.
No.
Say the question again.
What is the most legislated bit of... what is the most, edited bit of legislation in the history of Australia?
Alcohol policy?
Constitution? I don't know.
The Anti-Land Rights Act.
Yeah. Okay.
It's been the most... over the time, it's been the most changed, and most altered, and most flipped. And we talk about changing the Constitution. The Constitution's only been changed 20-odd times.
Yeah, not much.
Since 1901. But we look then into, Land Rights Act, which is, obviously giving power back to communities, and that's been changed the most. It gets changed every single year of government. It's been put there because people want to take money away. People want to, give money back, take money away, give money back, take money away. The voice being in the Constitution means that we actually get a say on what you were doing. You can't take money back and give money here and take it over there unless you come and consult us. You have to consult us. And then you can't get into power and just wipe us out and say goodbye because we're constitutionally protected. We're there for a reason, which is what's happening. We're just pinballing around, back and forth, Labor, Liberal, Labor, Liberal. Oh, they don't need help. Oh, they need help. Oh, they don't need help. Oh, they need help. It's frustrating. My whole life, I've been dealing with it. Seeing people with terrible outcomes in communities either get more terrible or just get slightly better. Anyway, intervention just they pretty much went out and said that all Aboriginal communities in the NT were pedophiles, which is essentially the crux of it. While there were some allegations and stuff, there was nothing shown to, to really exacerbate the claims, or at least to the point that they were claiming them to be. And so it was a manhunt. We were getting more power. We had ATSIC in, and then they come out and they just said, nah, you're all pedophiles, like, rah. And the whole country turned on us. So it was a point where we were like a pinnacle, and then they just kicked us back down. And you look at a lot of the language in the discussions around the NT intervention, and they are very reminiscent of what Jacinta Price is currently saying now. And I don't know who's fact-checking her, but I understand that there's, abuse problems in communities, but the fact that she is going out there and talking like we're back here in 2007, when it was proven untrue, that they said that all of the leaders from these communities were pedophiles.
They couldn't have said that.
They didn't say it in that wording, but that's what they meant, mate. That's what they meant. And it really disrupted a lot. It was crazy, and it removed a lot of laws, and it removed a lot of autonomy, I think. It's where the dry communities came in too. Dry communities came out of that, and it meant we weren't living the lives we should be living.
Did you think that the intervention was needed, or do you now think that the intervention was needed?
I was young when it happened, so I didn't quite understand it. But I've had many discussions with my old man about it, and it wasn't needed from his perspective, because we were just about to get some, we're just moving forward. ATSIC was helping move forward. Well, ATSIC had its problems and it wasn't run correctly. We were moving slowly towards more control over our communities. Do you want to know why communities are so impoverished still to this day?
Tell me.
So what's the number one GDP of Australia, the number one product that we sell, highest GDP?
Alcohol.
No. Iron ore. Minerals.
Okay, yeah.
Minerals, sorry.
Yeah.
So where do we get minerals from usually nowadays?
Mines.
The outback, the mines, WA, Conor, remote NT. After the Land Rights Act, who was going to get back their land? It was Aboriginal people. So Aboriginal people are getting now royalties for this, but the royalties that they get are spread out across a lot of people. So you're getting 2 million, but it's spread between, maybe like 2,000 people, 2,500 people or something like that. So it's not really that much money at the end of the day per person, per head of population. So you keep these people on the hook. You keep them a bit poor. You keep them, chasing the grog, chasing whatever else, going after, with no opportunity. So not building more community, not doing it. You keep them under your control. So if they need more houses, they can't build them. And so what does that mean? It means they got no job opportunities. They go, okay, let's go and we'll just keep doing this. We'll keep collecting royalties. Only living below, just above the line, really. We'll just keep collecting it. And then the government goes, oh, we need more land to mine. We need more minerals to up our GDP. We're running out of money. Hey, mate, I'll give you an extra 2 million for 100,000 acres. Oh, yeah, done. Because their family needs it, and they're all impoverished, and they're all living in these communities where that's the reality, where there's nothing to look forward to, really. There's no big job at the light at the end of the tunnel. There's no big podcasting gig, There's maybe footy, maybe school, rangers jobs. There's no Woolworths to go get a job at. There's no, car cleaners to go clean cars. There's none of these things that we really take for granted in terms of economic stability and economic excellence and opportunity. Australia's the land of the opportunity. So why are these people devoid of that fact still in 2023? It's just it kills me, because I see how great these people are at their core. You know, while there are problems and issues, they are still great. You know, well, to me, they're great. And, you know, I've got a lot of respect for them because some of the things that they've been through would break most people, you know, break most people. And this is why I'm on social media a lot now, posting stuff about this voice, because while it might not fix everything, it's certainly a step in the right direction. I'm usually not a big social media man, but I'm doing reels and TikToks and whatever you call it, and, you know, whatever. But, you know, to me, it's a no-brainer, you know, and I'm not telling anyone here to vote yes or vote no or vote whatever. Vote on the goodness of your heart and the intelligence of your brain, not from what people tell you, you know.
So just stepping back into the intervention, Conor, what happened after it was implemented?
So dry communities come in.
Yep.
They banned a lot of stuff. They took a lot of funding away, and they tried to witch hunt a lot of the leaders. Noel Pearson, Yunupingu, etc. They all went for them. You know, government went for them because they saw communities getting power, and they just put them in this structure and put them in this box that was built to keep them in the box. That's pretty much the crux of it. While I can't really go into too much details, but
It's quite a hefty list.
it's quite a hefty list, yeah. Quarantining 50% of welfare payments from individuals living in designated communities from beneficiaries who are judged to have neglected their children. So that's the government retaining 50% of the money that these people were getting from communities, which is, I'm fairly sure that's something we call illegal, you know? It's, compulsory health checks, I guess that's a win, but, you know, we could do that without banning everything else and with withholding payments.
Here's a question on that. We talked about money, and you asked me whether I'd been to an Aboriginal community before. And I had. I went to Milingimbi with my last job, and I was working at the court, so we went out there for a court matter. We went out there. We consulted the locals. We spoke to a lot of people. We spoke to elders. We spoke to young people. We spoke to women. We spoke to children. And kind of the general gist of that community of 1,000 people, probably a little bit under, was that welfare payments was one of the biggest issues that community had faced, and it had essentially depleted all of the work ethic, the drive,
100%.
the passions they had for their land. And what had happened was the government starts putting in money, people get it, they lose their drive, they have X amount of money come in, they say, well, why do I need to work? They use it.
Why would I work for $500 when I can get $400 from the government and sit at home all day?
That's right. And then eventually, they were talking and they were showing us around the houses that were built by the locals, and then compared to the ones that were built now. And they said, in the last 15 years, we've spent so much money flying in tradies and people who can build our houses because no one in this community wants to work.
Yeah, which is, that is a real struggle in a lot of communities. Like, it is a real struggle. But do you think that who does that service really, in reality? Who is that servicing? Is that servicing the community? That idea of welfare payments? Then, if you look at it from that,
I don't believe so. Looking at it from that perspective,
it's not.
No.
From that perspective, it certainly is not. It's servicing the fly in, fly out people who come in and make absolute bank. They just collect all this money. Like, I see it. You go on Monday morning to the Air Tiwi Airport and you will see 100 tradies there. And why not? Their role isn't to look after this community. Their role is to build houses and make money for their families. So that's their job. So it's not their fault. It's the government's fault because the government's supposed to be looking this is a government-controlled community. Do you think that if the community had more control, they would be working to get houses built like they were back in the day? I think they would. But they can't get control about what they do because the government controls a community. Ergo, the voice will, work in a way that these people, the leaders of the community, while there's a lot of people that do not work and stuff like that, there's a lot of people in these communities that are strong-willed, incredibly strong-willed, that want to work, that want opportunities, that want cars, they want things, they want to live, they want to live well. But, the fact of the matter is they get $400. If you get $400 to sit down and do nothing in a place where there's no real opportunity, you're going to sit down and get $400 to do nothing. And that's where a lot of, the drinking and that comes from, because the resignation syndrome that I talked about, you resign and then you don't want to do it, and then you get caught in habits. We're habitual people, If you wake up 6 o'clock every day, your body's going to wake you up at 6 o'clock naturally. If you wake up at 10 o'clock and, you want to go drinking and smoking, then you're going to wake up and want to go drinking and smoking at 10 o'clock every day. It's a human nature. And you can't blame these people for being stuck in it, because they've had no autonomy over the way that their communities are supposed to develop, or had little autonomy over the way that the communities are supposed to develop. And, it's a damn shame, because, like I'll go back to the kids at Guningyara that are going to Dupma School. They just recently went away to a robotics competition in Dallas, which is wow. They come fourth in Australia out of the smallest community, not the smallest, it's actually a big community, but, a little community in Nhulunbuy. And they got control over this land that they own. They got jobs that they wanted. They built the economic, stability of the community. They got the educational outcomes they wanted by getting faffed in and getting more representation in the curriculum that they had through Dupma. And about 3 or 4 years after, they won a competition and went to Dallas. Wow. Isn't that a positive thing we should be looking at with this stuff? We like to look at, like I said before, the deficit thinking. We like to look at all this terrible, bad stuff that's happening, but we don't look at the positive outcomes that can come from this. Like many other programs that are out there that I don't know of, language programs that engage kids in school because they're learning their own culture, They learn their own culture and then do the curriculum and get to the level of, other students, then that's a great outcome. Even if they only get to the level where they're passing year 12, or even if they're only getting to the level where they're getting a, year 10 certificate than getting a trade, that's a better outcome than doing the opposite or doing the latter, So I would say to anyone that's worried about this stuff, check your framework. See how you're framing this thing. Are you framing it in a way that represents our history and our past of being, I won't say oppressors, but controllers of these people? Are we going to start looking at it in a ways that we can leverage this to advantage people? Because once you get it, you get autonomy, things start happening. And it's not going to be an easy job though. This is the other big thing, is when the vote goes through, that's not the end of the day. That's the start of the battle, The yes isn't the voice isn't the win, It's the first in a two-step process of treaty and Makarrata, but it's the first step in us getting more control back to then fix our problems, so that we are equipped and ready to go for treaty when we get it. We've got proper representation. We've got proper, while we do have a lot of Indigenous lawyers, we will be able to get, better representation through the law, because we've already got communities that are well set up and well equipped. Whereas now we might go for a treaty now and go, we need our community to be better. Better from this is only par for what's going on now. We want communities that are ready to thrive. We don't want communities that are good and meagre. We want communities that are there, ready to go, empowered, full of strong people, full of strong-minded kids and working adults. That's what we want. We don't want more handouts. We don't want more money and more grog and more hurt. We want integrity, and we want a good life. It's as simple as that.
What's your message to people who are on the fence at the moment?
Listen to the Addy Dave podcast. Honestly, I people say, do your research. I'd say sit down and have a good look at the referendum question. Just simplify it. Look at the referendum question. A proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise First Peoples of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve of this proposed alteration? Do you? Like, that's as simple as it is. Do you approve First Peoples of Australia getting recognised in the Constitution by them having a voice to Parliament? That's, it's not more complicated than that. While there are issues, that will get ironed out, that is the crux of it. I'd say sit, have a read over that, have a cup of tea, just sit with yourself, go talk to someone about it, a human person. Don't go on social media, unless you're on my account and you're liking my posts. No, go and have a human talk, or even before that, go and do your research and have a look at the fact-checked documents of each side, even though one side is not fact-checked properly and has misinformation in it, which we covered. Go and have a look at it, compare the two arguments, and then go and have a talk to someone about it. Like-minded, not like-minded, your mum, your dad, your auntie and your uncle, and have a human chat about it. Don't just go, oh, I read this and they, yeah, bloody mongrels, Go and say, oh, apparently, actually 80% of people, Aboriginal people, support the yes vote. Like, that's crazy. Like, why are we seeing so much of no Aboriginals supporting it? Like, what's the go with that? And then talk about it. Just understand it. It's not hard to understand this thing. Like, it's deliberately conflated to make us scared when we're a part of a democracy. We control it. We are the key stakeholder in democracy. Go and get engaged. Look at some good research that's fact-checked, and don't necessarily believe things on face value until you've dived into it. And talk to an Aboriginal person if you get a chance. Don't run up on the next black fella you see in the street and like start yelling at him about the referendum. But if you've got a friend or don't overload them either, but ask for a conversation and say, what do you think? Because if 80% of Aboriginal people agree with this, then that is a resounding amount of Aboriginal people that you're going to meet in person that support this, and that will give you the truthful representation of what they think. If they've had an upbringing like me and can talk as much as I can talk, then you're going to be stuck there for a while. So don't come ask me.
Conor, thanks so much, man.
No worries,
I
mate.
really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
this chat.
That's all right.
I purposely tried to press you on this issue to clear up some of the questions that people have, and I think you've dealt with it brilliantly. I think this discussion, like so many that I aim to have, is one of aiming to bring on people that I not disagree with or not agree with, but that just I want more information about.
This is a beautiful thing about this podcast. This is why I agreed to come on here. No one's having these conversations. Everyone's I wouldn't say afraid, but everyone's tentative. And when we talk about it, we walk on eggshells and we tiptoe around it and we don't get to the middle of it. And I'm happy to get to the middle of it with everyone, because once you understand the middle of it, you understand the heart of what we want, and you understand the heart of the issue, the truth comes out. And, as human beings, we empathise with each other, and it just makes sense, But, yeah.
I'll just say one thing as well. I think, an issue that I experienced, like, growing up, you're young, you're intellectually immature. I am intellectually mature resoundingly at the moment as well. But, something that I'm trying to...
You're doing all right. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Something that I'm trying to work on is to drop the resent. And I think that in the heart of this issue, I see resent. I see the no campaign seeing something and then resenting the yes campaigners, and that's their echo chamber that they stay in.
Yeah, 100%.
The yes campaign seeing something from the no campaign, immediately labeling them as racist or ignorant, and then that's the echo chamber that they stay in. They stay in their TikTok, Instagram echo chamber, unwilling to learn anything. So if there's one thing that I would say is, don't be afraid to walk on eggshells and press the person that you disagree with.
Definitely.
And that way, I do believe this now, is that the more you press, the more closer to the middle you get.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think there's beauty in that.
Yeah, 100%. And, there's beauty in having those competitive conversations and, having those chats that are hard and, emotional and draining, because you're actually talking about something. Like, if scrolling through TikTok, watching stupid reels was getting something done, you would have a good feeling at the end of it. But instead, when you get off, you feel drained and you feel like your head wants to explode. So doing this with people, like I said, have a human chat. Have a human chat, not a AI generated shit that's going on. Just go and talk to someone. Like, don't come up and spurt your ideologies. Talk about the facts of the matter and the issues that are out there. And actually use your empathy to, what a way to finish that burp too, sorry. Use your empathy to relate to people, and don't just go to bigotry and, and overgeneralizations and stereotypes. Actually have a think about it. Have a think about Aboriginal communities. People actually want to live like that. Would you want to live like that? Would you be happy with that? Are you happy with second best? Or you want to be up there winning with everyone else, as, one country. But yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you again for getting me on here.
Dude.
I love it. Hopefully I outdid John Vrodos.
did.
If he's listening, Johnny, thank you for getting through the whole episode.
Thanks heaps, man.
No worries, brother.